Hey guys, this is the start of a comprehensive guide to N8N, which will take you from a beginner user to a pro automation engineer. This course is practical. We are not going to learn from books. We are going to build stuff which will bring impact in the real world, focused on making money. I scaled my agency to 5K per month using N8N and Make alone, and the goal is to share all that experience and knowledge with you guys. If that sounds good to you, let's start. We are going to cover every nook and corner of N8N, so you have the complete overview of the whole product. This is their website. They describe themselves pretty well. Flexible AI workflow automation for technical teams. We can debate on this word because I know a lot of people who are non-technical and they use N8N daily. I'm just going to scroll down to the important parts. They have over 500 integrations with third-party apps, which are super useful. And we can code when we want to, or else we can use their drag and drop builder to basically create all our workflows. So if you're a developer, if you know a bit of code, you can code in JavaScript and Python whenever you want to in the middle of any workflow. Right. And then they have the rest of the basic stuff. We don't care about this. Just let's get started. Over here, I'm gonna put in details. I'm doing this as a newbie, so you have the complete understanding of what we are doing here. I'm gonna use my name and then company email. Let's say my random email and just copy paste this here. Okay, they don't let me paste it here. Type it 913@gmail.com. Password, let's say random password. Okay, let's say Gaurav YouTube. And yes, let's sign up to that newsletter. Okay, this thinks I'm a robot. All right, proof that we are not robot. Let's start our trial. I'm on the cloud version, so they do give a 14-day trial, and after that we have to pay for it. And there's also a self-hosted version, which we'll cover later down the line. Right, for now, it's very simple and beginner friendly to go forward with the cloud version only, right? And here we'll fill a small type form, I think. What inside the company? Let's say less than 20. Then what team are you on? Honestly, this doesn't really matter. Just keep answering whatever you feel like random things because this really doesn't matter. Okay, I can skip inviting anyone else. And it's starting up. Let's wait. Okay, I'm creating a video exactly like this, so don't watch this. All right, let's wait for this shit to load. This typically takes only a minute. Let's see. All right, start auto meeting. Let's go, guys. So you can see it gave my name what we used here. Again, we are the cloud version, and we are now into the dashboard of the N8N cloud version. Don't get intimidated by it. It is actually very simple. Let's go over through all of these one by one. So I am in the home section now. As you can see, it starts from scratch, test the AI sample, and start with a template, right? One thing I would definitely like to go back and talk about is that they have a lot of templates. Almost 7,000 templates are available on the internet for you. And these are mostly business focused templates, not just hobby projects. So I know a lot of people and myself as well, we use these templates. We keep to the business for our clients or our businesses and we directly sell them. And all of these templates are super business focused. So you can just start with this, right? Once you know all the basics. And coming back here, now let's go over through all these things. So you can see I'm over in the workflows tab. So here we'll see all our workflows when we have them. Over here in the credentials is we are setting up credentials. When we set up credentials between third parties, right? Let's say Google Sheets, Docs, Slack, ClickUp. A lot of these things we need to connect our credentials to, right? And so that we can do and manipulate stuff with those apps, right? So if you just click on create credential, what it will do is it will ask you, okay, which API are you connecting, right? Again, lots of options here, and then you click and then continue, and then you basically create the credentials based on that app's connection procedure, right? Say for workflow yours, you click on create workflow. and then it will basically create this workflow for you. Let me go back here to the home page so we can continue what we were seeing, right? And now over here in executions, you will be able to see all the executions once you create workflows, right? Your past execution of each workflow, right? This is pretty much limited based on what plan you are, self-hosted, cloud, depends on what plan you're using, right? Of course, these things are new actually. Variables can be used to store data, right? I'm recording this video on 19th November. So they have released a lot of new things, right? And these variables and data tables are super new, right? They weren't in N8N before, right? And now basically you can create data tables, databases, and use them across your multiple workflows and access all those datas, right? And you can create one here. So if you create and then you enter a name, let's say YouTube, and you create, and then you can see you have a table here, and then this is basically a table. You add rows, columns, and then you can use this in your workflows, right? Let me go back here again to the home page. Same with variable, guys. If I add a variable, then you add a key and a value pair. If you don't know what a key and a value pair is, it's basically you name a object and you give the value to that object, right? And that is basically it. You can chat GPT and learn a simple way of it, right? I'm just gonna type Gaurav YouTube. Right. So scope, you just give global, and if you click save, right? So now basically this you can access, right? This is the name of the key, and this dollar VARS stands for accessing it, right? Using dot notation. And basically you access this variable in any of your workflows, right? And coming back to workflows here, on this drop down, as you can see, you can switch over what you're creating as well. Over here you see your executions, you see which executions failed, the rate, the time that you saved with those executions instead if you have done manually, and the runtime, that how much average time did every workflow run for you. Right. Coming over here, from here also you can create a workflow, create a credentials. This personal which you see is like your personal area. As you can see here, it says personal, right? So in personal, if you go, this is your personal area, right? Which they give you by default, right? You can create one over here, right? You can create a project over here. Similarly, like that, let me just create your YouTube and click on save. Right, project got review tips successfully. Now let's go here, and then you can see this is my project now, right? Let's go back to personal, right, and continue from here. On the left, on the bottom left, this is on the cloud version only. You can have a beautiful admin panel, right? Which is still, honestly, we don't use this a lot, but I'm still showing you. However, the main use case here becomes to see everything happening in your N8N, right? This is only useful if you have a good plan in N8N. So let's go back. And over here we have templates, right? So from here also you can access all the templates and see more templates, which will bring you to this website again. Let me close this, right? You can access all the business templates from here. Over here, then we have Insight, which will bring you to this Insights page, which we saw in the home page again. It is just a detailed view. You can change the dates here. You can see everything. And this will be useful once you have production ready systems, right? Which you will have, right? And over here, you can contact help, see the documentation, go through the community forum, right? And learn about the app, everything, right? Here are notifications. So as we can see, 0 versions behind. So we are on the latest version of N8N. It will say 1 version, 2 versions behind, and you will have to update N8N every time. They usually launch an update every week or so, right? And you can read what are new, right? I just said data tables are kind of new here. And over here, you can see your profile. So over here, you can see my credentials. So if I click, this is basically like my profile. Click on settings. You can see all the basic information about yourself here. You can change the theme from here, from light, dark. I'm just going to keep this to dark, right? And then basically you can see all the basic information about yourselves. And these are only applicable if you have enterprise plans, which we are not going there. And of course, from here, you can enable MCP for your N8N instance, right? Which is your going to be useful when you start using MCP and simplify your workflows. That will definitely simplify your workflows. So I'm just going to close this tab where it says to upgrade now. We don't need to upgrade right now. All right, so we are done with the opening dashboard. Let's create a workflow now and get on the juicy part, right? So I'm into the canvas now. It's a clean workflow. Let me just first, as you can see, it's in the personal area, and this is the name of the workflow. Let me change the name. Gaurav YouTube, right? And then, of course, add a tag here. Since this is a new account, there are no tags. You should always tag your workflows so it is separated properly. Right? I'm just going to mark this at YouTube. Just create a tag. It created a tag. Now it is within YouTube, right? And this, we don't need to edit the description very much, right? Because tags and names are usually enough. So as you can see here on this tab, we are on the editor page where you can edit and create workflows. Over here, we can again directly see all our executions of this specific workflow, right? And of course, we have an evaluation tab where you can evaluate how well your workflows are performing across when they're in production, right? So these are the three main tabs. Over here, you can see it's written inactive, and from basically you from here you can activate your workflows. As you can see, it says this workflow has no trigger, node that requires activation, right? So of course we need to create triggers and everything, so it activates and opens or runs the workflow, right? Over here, it says share. So from here, we can basically share the workflow with different users, right? This is helpful when you're sharing between your friends, your partners, your clients, whoever, your colleagues, anyone, right? And this over here, you can see it says saved, right? And if I make any changes here, let's say I add this random trigger, and then you see it changed to save, right? And now basically, if I click on this, it basically saves the workflow, right? Let me close this again. And over here, if you don't save, it really changes, right? So this is basically workflow history to review and restore previous versions of your workflow. This will restore your workflow to a previous version, right? Now, if you click on these three dots, you can see these are very important, guys. Duplicate, which will create a duplicate of your workflow. Let me just click duplicate, right? And this you can see my name and a copy. Just duplicate, right? So it opened a new workflow over here, and here you can see, and we go back to personal, just click on save, go back to personal, you can see a new workflow is created for this, right? Then if I click here, then we can download this workflow, which would basically download the JSON of this workflow, right? And then we can change the owner, of course, to, let's say, but if we add people over here, and then we will basically be able to add them or make them the owner. We can rename, which is just bringing you back to here, which we covered this already. We can import from a N8N URL. So let's say someone shared you the URL, and then you can import that workflow readily and import from file, which means basically if someone shares this JSON data, it will or shares this JSON directly with you. You will just click on it, import it, and your workflow will be ready, right? And over here, of course, you can see the settings of your workflow. Now, some of these things are important. Let me just cover what we are error workflow to notify when this errors. These are basically error workflows that if this errors, then you trigger this workflow, right? So again, if something error happens in this workflow, then what? Then this other workflow will trigger, right? So you can set this like basically you can create a new workflow as error handlers, right? Which will notify you when, let's say, an error happened in some client workflow, right? Then this workflow can be called by these are like any workflow, like let's say permissions, right? And then from here you can change the time zone to wherever you are, right? And save. These are not important. Not important. Timeout workflow, not really important. Estimated time saved. Here you can basically create the workflow and then estimate a time of what you are doing exactly, right? And this will basically calculate how much time did you save during when these executions are running. Let's say I write here 2, so it's like 2 minutes per execution, right? We are just going to save this. And now we have covered everything within the three dots. This is basically the GitHub review. We don't care about this. So we covered everything in this three dots menu. And now I'm going to show you the node panel. If we click on plus sign, this, then you can see it opens the node panel and it says what trigger this workflow. So start off every workflow, you generally add triggers. There are like multiple triggers. Trigger manually. Trigger what is trigger manually? You click here and then it will trigger, right? And then there are other triggers as well. Let's say on app event, what does that mean? Let's say something happens in Gmail, something happens in HubSpot, something happens in AWS, something happens across Google in Google Sheet, right? So basically, then this workflow will be triggered, right? And on a schedule means basically it will schedule at every day, or it will schedule every minute, it will schedule every hour, right? And then these are the hours between the trigger, right? You can go through all these schedule according to what you want. Let's say you want to schedule the workflow 6 times a day, right? So you can just use hours and then write, let's say 4 hours between triggers. So it will trigger at that, like 6 times every 4 hours. So in one day, it is triggering 6 times, right? That is the whole idea of these triggers. And on a webhook call, this is a little bit a little bit technical, right? That we create a webhook, we call this webhook, right? And from a third party, and then this scenario will trigger. We'll go over that in a later video. And then all the form submission, which we use much often, basically you can create a form right here. Then we launch this form, we input data in this form, and then basically it will trigger the workflow, right? And then what we have here is these are like code and HTTP requests, right? These are not really that big of triggers, right? Human in the loop is something we'll talk about later, right? Let me just close this, right? Yeah. And then when executed by another workflow is when this again a bit complex, that another workflow triggers this workflow when something happens over there, right? So you can basically chain through everything, right? On a chat message. So basically this is pretty useful, and a lot of people use this, that you if you open a chat, then basically you type your hi, and when you type in the message, this workflow is triggered, right? So everything after that will happen, right? And let me close this again. And when running evaluation is not important, usually you'll find yourself using manual triggers, app triggers, webhooks, forms. That's it. For client work, mostly you will find yourself using these things, these four triggers as well. For now, for I'm just going to use a manual trigger so we can control and get trigger in this workflow. Right, and now we're going to start building the first node, let's say. So if you click on this plus button, it will again open the node panel and it will ask you what happens next. What node do you want next? Right. And over here, you can see there are a bunch of options. There's AI, there's action in the app, again something in third party, the Google Sheets, Notion, whatever, right? Then data manipulation means we can manipulate, reduce, filter, basically manipulate the data, right? Then we have flow to control flows. Let's say we have arrays, we have to merge arrays, we have to split arrays, then we have to branch items, and we use if conditions, right? So all these things happen over using flow. And then we have the core, which from using which we can use the code step. HTTP request is used to call APIs, right? We have data tables, right? And usually we use these three a lot, right? We have human in the loop, which will trigger a human in the loop scenario, right? And then it will send, let's say, an email in Gmail to a human. Then when he clicks approve or decline, then it will continue the workflow from there, right? So this is how everything is scheduled. Of course, the a very big benefit is that we can add multiple triggers. If I click here, add a note, it says add another trigger, right? So over here, you can again add one more trigger. Let's say on app event, right? Let's me type Google Sheets. Okay, Google Sheets. So you can see there are three triggers that when a row is added, when a row is updated, or for basically both. Let's say on row added. So every time a row is added on a Google Sheet, it will trigger, right? So this is how it will work. So you can add bunch of triggers over here, right? Of course, what I did, I did zoom out from here, right? I use control and my scroll bar to zoom in and out. If you're on Mac, then you use command. right? And then you use your trackpad to zoom in and out, which actually brings me to this area, which we didn't really cover. Let me just delete these triggers, right? Close this chat, right? And over here, you can see there is zoom to fit, right? Which will basically zoom to fit. Let me create two nodes, right? And let's say I'm like this, right? And then click, boom, zoom to fit your screen, right? Over here, from here, you can zoom in, you can zoom out, right? You can reset the zoom, right? And you can basically tidy up. Let's say this is here, this is here. You can tidy. This is basically everything in one line, right? So this is useful when you are creating bunch of automations, right? Bunch of automations, right? Okay. Now over here, of course, you have the command bar, and you can basically type commands, you can search for things, right? This is super useful, right? And of course, you can add notes here. You can add custom notes. Let's say, as you can see, it says, I'm a node, edit me. You can style with markdown as well, as it says it written here, right? Which where you basically use hashes as headings and everything, right? Let's say note for YouTube, and then I use this, and like my name is Gaurav, right? And then if you see how it is coming out, right? And then let's close this. Over here, we have a node parameter here. We can basically show a node, keep your prompts always visible, keep a prompt visible, keep node visible, keep everything visible, right? I'm not going to cover N8 and AI. We are going to keep that for a later video because that's not useful when you're a beginner. I would highly suggest you create all the workflows manually for now. Use your own brain, use your own thinking, and set up general workflows first. And once you're familiar, only then use templates, AI, and everything to create those. So you can fix if AI gives you random bullshit, you can fix those things. You have the power to fix those things, right? I'm going to delete this node now. And over here, let's create another node where we actually do something. Let's use a Google Sheet module where we get the rows and the data, right? So I'll type in here in the node panel, Google Sheets, click on it. As you can see, it gave me a bunch of options. Over here, let's use the get rows, which will basically get rows of the sheet or of the Google sheet that I select, right, from the correct document. Over here, it says credentials to connect with. We don't have any credentials, so we create new ones, right? And since I'm on the cloud version, this is going to be super easy to connect. But if you are on the self-hosted version, then there are some steps where you connect Google Cloud Console, get credentials from there, and then you connect everything, right? Over here, I'm just going to name it like my 913 account Google Sheets, G Sheets, right? Sign in with Google. And over here, as you can see, I just click this email and select give all the consent. And this will basically connect my Google Sheet account, right? So as you can see, this was super easy, right? And my credentials are here. And now let's select a document. Okay, test sheet for YouTube, and then the sheet within that document, sheet one, right? And we are basically ready, right? So it will get the rows in this sheet for me, right? Now let's run this. We click on execute workflow. As you can see, this node ran successfully, workflow executed successfully, and this gave us an output of the row number, the name, email, number, right? It gives you in three different outputs in the JSON schema, in a table format, and then in the raw JSON, right? All of these are super useful. You'll mostly see me and other people use schema or JSON usually, and I would suggest you do that as well. Over in the next videos, where we talk about fundamental concepts and everything, we'll talk about everything, manipulating data, getting data, sending data, updating data, everything, right? I hope you are super familiar with the whole N8N dashboard, the canvas, every bits and details that you should know, every small technical things now. And in the next video, we'll discuss every fundamental concept. For now, this is it. Thank you for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next one.